Hey, hello everybody. Welcome back to Call Me Mr. Broadstreet. So today I'm going to go ahead and cover the George Harrison solo album Dark Horse from 1974. Before we get started again, just thank you to all my subscribers and thank you to everybody for listening. If you enjoy these videos, again, please make sure to give a thumbs up, hit that bell for future alerts, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. It's always appreciated. Hope everybody's doing well. So I re-listened to the album, again, to George's 1974 Dark Horse release. I'll go ahead and hold up the cover first of all. There we go. I was listening to the Capitol CD version, so that's the version I'm listening to. I've had it for quite a while. This is an old 1956 photo from George's, probably the United States. I guess it would be like a middle school photo. That's him right up there in blue. Let's see if I can get that a little closer to the camera. I don't think the camera on this is going to pick it up too well. But so basically we've got that album right there. Now it was released on December 9th of 1974. US charts, it hit number 4. UK, it didn't chart, funny enough. Don't know why it didn't chart in the United Kingdom, but there you go. So for this particular album, what George did is a little bit more background. He actually did a U.S. tour between November and December of 1974. It was the first tour that he had done in the U.S. since the breakup of the Beatles, and certainly since their last concerts in 1966. He would never end up touring the U.S. after the 1974 tour. The closest that anyone came to live performances was the Live in Japan performances in 1991. But nothing as far as a tour, at least in the United States. Kind of a shame. I mean, it would have been good to see a tour, say for Cloud 9, for instance, or something along those lines. Would have been amazing. But I don't think he enjoyed the touring. Let me rephrase that. I think out of everybody, he enjoyed touring the least, even by the end of the Beatles' touring years. So that's what I've understood, anyways. But going on to the album, so I've got some notes here. So it starts off with Harry's on Tour, Express, in parentheses. It's kind of a mid-70s saxophone sound. It's an instrumental, so there's not a lot to comment on it. It's a great slide guitar, kind of just moves along very nicely. Sounds like the warm-up for a tour. You know, that's kind of the feeling I get. But, you know, good rolling instrumental, which is good to start off the album with. The next song, Simply Shady, it's a good vocal, kind of almost describing like if someone's having a trip or a bad drink or whatever, kind of giving in to your desires, various, whatever those desires might be. The lyrics do mention Sexy Sadie, which is a good callback to the White Album, so I thought that's kind of a nice little touch. And the Beatles, in their solo years do kind of call back to past albums and past songs that they did together as a group. So just always kind of interesting whenever something like that kind of pops up. We get to the next song, So Sad. That's track number 3. It's catchy, yet it's sad. It's kind of a little bit of a downer track, so if you ever wanted to end a 70s theme party, you put on this track. Yeah, it's probably going to bring the mood down a little bit. A really good lyric that as I was re-listening to the album today, and a cold wind blows, not much tenderness flows. Kind of a good little lyric that stands out. Some great electric piano work on the song by Nicky Hopkins, who's on the track. And on drums, we also get Ringo and Jim Keltner. So Harrison's really got some good people on this album. He's also got Billy Preston on the album. He's also got Ron Wood. I'll get to that track later on in this review as I'm going along through my notes here. Fourth track is Bye Bye Love. It's actually a cover of the Everly Brothers song. Now, for those of you expecting a straight-ahead cover, no, it sounds different from the original. It's, how do I put it? Basically, it's kind of it's sung in a slower style than the original, kind of different phrasing for the lyrics. So even though the lyrics are definitely familiar from the Everly Brothers version, this is kind of a different take on it. Interestingly, Patty Harrison and Eric Clapton are on the track, so it's only George, Patty, and Eric. The reason I bring this up, I'm sure some of the hardcore fans know this, but some of the newer fans out there, or a little more casual fans, So George and Patty were married for a while, but I think they were kind of breaking up around this point, around this time frame. I haven't gone back to reread the research or anything, but to make a long story short, so Patty ends up with Eric Clapton for a few years after she divorces George. So, kind of all three of them on the same track, just kind of an interesting little dynamic. Again, just a little bit of a different spin. Not super outstanding, to me. Fifth track is Maya, Maya, Love. Now, this is the first song, lyrics-wise at least, it feels like it's a positive song. So it really feels like an upbeat song. One of the outstanding tracks, great electric piano intro by Billy Preston. Billy Preston, one of the very few people to actually have worked with both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So he held that distinction. Sadly, Billy passed, I want to say in 2006. I have to double check. But, he's missed, and really amazing musician. Really adds a lot to the sound, whatever track he's on. Basically, it just grooves along nicely. Really good track. Sixth track on the album, Ding Dong, Ding Dong. So this is a New Year's track, like the ringing of a bell. That's the meaning of it. So good lyric, ring out the old, ring in the new, ring out the false, ring in the true. So I think, this is a very festive track. I'm kind of surprised this has never been played for New Year's. I think among Beatles fans and solo Beatles circles, I'm sure people who out there who play the track as you're celebrating New Year's, but very much kind of that post-Christmas, right around New Year's feeling. Again, I'm kind of surprised it never became a New Year's staple, as it were, but hopefully it will. You never know, right? Some slightly hoarse vocals on this song. Not too bad, but I'm going to kind of get into that more with the next track, which was actually the single released off the album. Track number 7 is Dark Horse. It was a single. It reached number 15 in the U.S., so, it did not too badly, considering. It's very catchy. There's hoarse vocals, as in H-O-A-R-S-E, not the horse in the title, but when your voice gets hoarse. Really good lyric from the song I've always enjoyed whenever I've listened to it. I'm a dark horse running on a dark race course. Kind of the feeling of, hey, don't count me out. You may be underestimating me, but I'm right there in the middle of the pack, at least. Great acoustic guitar work throughout the song as well, so it kind of matches, the whole rhythm, the whole tempo of the track. I think better vocals might have helped it to get into the top 10. And as a matter of fact, if you get the version on Apple on iTunes, that's an extra bonus track that's going to have the cleaner version. And what I mean by that is simply just the vocals aren't hoarse. The vocals are just more the George vocals we're used to hearing. Excuse me. As hopefully I'm not going hoarse right now. I've always enjoyed this track. I think it's just a little bit of a different feeling. The hoarseness of his voice kind of makes it stand out a little bit. Again, so it does obviously sound a little bit different. I think it's kind of unique myself, but it was unintentional. He wasn't feeling super well at the time of this tour, so, obviously exhaustion and other things going into the voice, that's going to affect you. Affect any of us, no matter what job we do. So not too many tracks left. Actually, only 2 other tracks on this album. Far East Man. So Ron Wood co-wrote the music. So at this point in 1974, Ron Wood did appear on the title track of It's Only Rock and Roll from the same year by the Rolling Stones. Ron Wood, probably best known up to this point as one of the members of the Faces with Rod Stewart. So Ron Wood was about to join the Rolling Stones kind of full-time within about a year or 2 after this particular album. So just kind of an interesting connection. I think, again, a lot of people play up the so-called rivalry with the Beatles and the Stones, but they were great friends. They all still are. Everybody who's still with us, they've kind of contributed on tracks here or there. I've always found it interesting between the 2 bands, there was a sort of unwritten rule that they would never release something in direct competition with each other, which is still held true today if you see something released in the same year. I know, going off on a little bit of a tangent, but hey, just a little bit more of interesting rock and roll trivia. Good collaboration all around. There's a good little shout out to Frank Sinatra from George, vocal-wise. Right before he sings a song, he says, hey, you could do this on your next album. Honestly, yeah, it's kind of got a Frank vibe to it. Frank Sinatra could have covered the song. he never did. He only covered something as part of the concerts that Frank did throughout his career, certainly after that song came out. Some very nice vocals on this song. Again, it certainly fits Frank Sinatra's style more than the Paul McCartney composition Suicide from 1970. Now, Paul actually ended up sending that particular track to Frank. Frank said, "What the heck is this?" So a good little bit of interesting trivia. I'll get to that when I do the McCartney review at some point, but needless to say, this would have suited Frank's style better. But again, just good music, good vibe all around to the track. So just to kind of give a little feedback on that. The ninth and final track, It Is He, in quotation marks. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation on this. Jai Shri Krishna. I think at this point it's kind of the spiritual track on the album, if you will. Following the fact that George had released All Things Must Pass in 1970, and then Living in the Material World in 1973. Maybe at this point he still felt he needed to put a spiritual track. He was definitely the most outspoken about belief in spirituality of all the solo Beatles, at least for a while. The most vocal about it. I think still is in a lot of ways. Although, whatever beliefs the others had or have, well, they've probably kept it a little bit more private in some ways, or a little bit more subdued, if you will. Just an interesting little piece of memorabilia I wanted to bring out real quick. This is from 1975. This is from my dad's collection. Now, I'm going to do a separate review on this at some point down the road, but I just thought I'd point out something interesting that it kind of goes into the same year, into 1974. Being careful with the book here, because it's, X number of years old. So from 1975, there's copies out there, but I don't want to have to go through buying one. But I just thought on page 113 there's an interesting review. This reads in part from the authors. Musically, the playing is impeccable, but so it is on most albums in these latter days. Lyrics are in turn sanctimonious, repetitive, I can't pronounce that word, and self-satisfied. It's not a curse word, I just can't pronounce the word. It is a boring album. One wishes that it had not come from an ex-Beatle. I think that's a bit harsh, myself, to be quite honest. And I mean, again, the authors were reviewing it at the time, I get it. So you might be asking yourself, well, where do I rank this in terms of albums? Well, it's not an essential album. It's not All Things Must Pass. It's not Cloud 9. But it's definitely not a Pick Up Last album either. It's not his weakest album in the scale that I use. So the only other two you have is Good to Great, which is kind of like a B or a B+, or Pick Up Next, which would be a C or a C+. I think in ranking all the albums, I'd probably have to put this as a Pick Up Next. I think there's a couple of other albums that are a little bit stronger than this, even if they're not essential, that I would go with first. I think Dark Horse, no real pun intended, but it's kind of right in the middle of the pack, as it were. So I think it's a good, solid album. I think you want to pick it up next in your journey after you've gotten exposed to a little bit more of George's solo music. So that kind of wraps up the review for this week. Next week, I'm going to go ahead and do Greatest Hits collection from Ringo called Photograph, the Best of Ringo Starr. It's a CD and DVD that I want to go ahead and do to kind of cycle back to Ringo. Although I may end up doing another bonus review at some point even sooner than that, but at least look for the Ringo review next Saturday, if nothing else. Again, I just appreciate everybody listening to me go ahead and do my reviews, and I'm just enjoying it. I'm really, again, enjoying listening to these albums again. I'm enjoying kind of going back through the catalog and going, oh yeah, I hadn't heard that in a while. Again, I've had this album for a while, probably since the early to mid-90s. It was released by Capitol in 1991, but I probably would have picked it up sometime, early to mid-90s. So anyways, I hope everybody's doing well. Please stay safe. And again, I'll just see you in the next review. Thank you so much, and talk to you later.